So I'm 23 years old, getting booked into the county jail for attempted murder. And I'm like, dude, my whole life is over. But man, God had a bigger plan for me. I had this moment of clarity where I realized, Sean, what are you doing? Like, you're doing the same thing in here you did all those years in your life that ultimately led you to being at that party and got you arrested. But I started taking accountability for my entire life. And the reason is I sat in that cell and I started thinking about all the things in my life that I would never get a chance to do. All the things that I had wanted to do, the changes I wanted to make. I just wasted all those years. And I started to realize that I'd taken my life for granted and I had wasted that valuable time. And that was something that really stung me, man. Like that pain, it stung me to the core of my being. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are going to feel and realize on their deathbed is they're going to look back on their life and they're going to wish they had more time to do all the things they said they were going to do and all the changes they want to make and the person they want to become. And it's too late.
Are you ready to become the dad you were meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect actions are better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, the founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they're called to be. We need epic dads now more than ever. And it is your responsibility and obligation to become the best father you can be and show your kids what is possible. Listen in for weekly tips, strategies, and actions you can take to go from average dad to epic dad. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. Sean Crane, welcome to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast.
What's up, brother? Glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. So I don't know too much about you, and I'm excited about that because I want to hear your story. I met a mutual acquaintance that I think we're both working with right now and said, hey, man, you got to connect with Sean. He's got a really cool story. Love what he has working on right now. So I dug in just a little bit, but purposefully have tried to not learn a bunch about you because I knew we were going to have this podcast. So I'd love to just hear, man, like, what are you doing right now? Kind of like, what are you focused on now? And then I want to go back and kind of go through your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a cool story about how I met Will.
Yeah.
Got a lot of love and respect for Will. And so I'll share with that in a little bit. But I founded Unstoppable 365, which
Okay.
is basically a performance program, mindset, fitness, nutrition, personal development, predominantly for business owners, but for anybody who wants to prioritize their health and take things to the next level. And that just derived from my life experience and the changes I made, through that experience. We'll get to that. But then being able to build an amazing team around me this past year. I have a women's division that's run by Whitney Jones, who's a 3-time Miss Olympia. Like if you Google Whitney Jones and you watch her highlight reels on YouTube, she's an incredibly gifted and talented human being. She's so athletic, man. And she's a great person, mother, great coach, super inspiring story. So she runs the women division. Dr. J, who's my personal doctor and one of my business partners, he's a part of the company. He does all of the blood work and takes the deep dive into people's health. The work I did with him was one of the most impactful things I've ever done in my life. And that's why I wanted to bring him on as a team member to provide that same service for other people. You don't always know what's going on internally until you do the blood work, whether it's your hormones, your gut health, all these different factors. So he's a key player in the business. And then we have a dietitian on staff, all these other brilliant coaches and team members. So it went from me by myself to now 15 people a part of my team. And we work predominantly with blue collar business owners, men in the trades who are operating large companies and businesses who typically don't take care of their health. And they put Band-Aids on all these symptoms until they start having negative effects or side effects in their life. So that's who we're working with right now.
Okay. Very cool, man. And you guys, like, what is the optimal target you guys are shooting towards, right? I mean, it's better overall health, right? But define that for me. Like, are you guys looking to impact certain markers on blood panels? Is it get guys 6-packs? What's the overall kind of goal?
Yeah, everything. I mean, to be transparent with you, my job is to set a standard and uphold that standard so that when all of my potential clients or clients see me on social media or in person, they're like, damn, okay, I want to be ripped like that. I want to speak like that. I want to be present for my family like that. I love coaching and speaking and just this journey online because it requires me to continuously grow and develop myself. So when a client shows up and they have goals, first we're going to meet them where they're at and figure out what are their goals, what are their challenges. But for every man, like I think every man should aspire to have a six pack. There's statistics floating around. I don't know how accurate these are, that 1 in 25,000 men actually have abs you can see in America. I don't know if that's true and how they come up with that figure, but what I will say is that having abs is probably more rare than driving a Lamborghini nowadays, it seems. So it not only is a status symbol, but it represents discipline, hard work. It represents the fact that you know how to eat, that you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, I mean, that's a standard that I hold, but it's teaching guys how to work out and how to use the gym, not only to get healthier and strong, but as a catalyst to build confidence, to build discipline. It's a catalyst for success across the board. So if you have a business owner and he's not working out and he's not eating right and he's drinking too much, you get him in the gym, you get him sober, you get him eating the right foods, and suddenly his energy goes through the roof. Suddenly he's performing better in his business. He's more of an effective and influential leader for his team members. And then the goal is that he has enough mental bandwidth to go home and be present with his family and bring that same focus and intentionality that he has on himself to his family. So my goal for the clients I work with is success across the board in all areas of life. And that's mentally, physically, spiritually, in their relationships and in their business.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I think it definitely resonates, hits home, especially for the guys listening to this podcast, right? Where our audience is definitely dads and kind of, the working dad, right? In the trenches, getting after it. And, we a lot of times will prioritize the putting food on the table. Like we have to, that's our job. Right.
Yeah.
But unless we really dive in and kind of put our mask on first, so to speak, and like take care of ourselves and prioritize ourselves a little bit, like we're showing up, at like 60, 70% max for the rest of our pillars. So we talk about our body, our relationships, our mind, and our finances. Those are kind of our four pillars. And like we, as dads, always try to want to like make sure we have the financial one ticked, right? Because that's our job to provide. But like that's baseline, right? Like you need to be showing up in all these other areas too.
Yeah, and I totally get that and respect that, and that's why I love working with blue collar, not just business owners, but it just happened organically by posting content on Facebook. I started connecting with guys who are HVAC business owners or
Mhm.
roofing business owners or garage door repair company, and it's the business owner, and then started working with all those team members, whether they were in sales or actually out in the field. I love the fact that that's predominantly our demographic because those are the guys that I connect with the most and relate to, and I respect. I know they're out there working hard. They're developing a skill set, they're in a trade, and they're doing a valuable service for America. They're building our roads, they're fixing our homes. Like when your lights go out and your power's off, you're going to call an electrician, and that guy's
Mhm.
going to come out there and he's going to do a good job. So I respect them because I know they're working hard to take care of their families and build a productive, successful life. But oftentimes they don't know what foods to eat. They don't understand why working out and taking care of their health is so important until it's too late.
Yeah.
They're drinking to kind of handle the stress at night. And those guys, they just don't either think that they can put all the pieces together because of time and energy or whatever it is. And they don't understand how much better they can be in life and how much better they'll feel by prioritizing themselves. And I think for parents and just adults in general, people start to feel guilty like, oh man, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like, no, you don't have to take away from your time with the family. You have to prioritize these things so that when you're with the family, you feel better. You have more
Mhm.
energy. And the biggest thing is you're able to be more present. Like when you really are working on yourself and you feel proud of who you're becoming, you see the progress and the goals you're achieving on a personal level, you bring that feeling into your relationships. And it's like this unconscious thing, man. Your energy's better, you're in a better mood, you carry yourself differently.
Mhm.
You transfer that energy to your wife, to your kids. Like they feel it, man, because you're becoming a different version of yourself, a better version of yourself.
Mm.
And that personally, what I've experienced in my life, and also the men that I coach, it's one of the greatest blessings is to see the effect it has on them long term because you're making your stuff a priority, your health, your commitments, your habits.
Mm. I love that. Well, Sean, where did you like you? How long have you been doing Unstoppable Mindset? Like when did this
So
all kick off for you?
Unstoppable Mindset's my podcast. Unstoppable 365 is
Okay.
my company. I founded the company roughly 5 years ago, and that was
Okay.
me just filming videos on my phone during COVID, like doing Facebook Lives. That's how I started building my business, and I was getting the attention of a lot of people because I got a sensational story we'll get into. I have a
Mm.
lot of passion, and I know how to create a connection through my content. That's literally when I met Will. I was an in-person trainer here in Santa Barbara, California, And I was working for another personal trainer, just getting experience working with clients, getting my feet on the ground in the industry. And then I left working with him to start my own fitness company. And so then I was traveling to all these different gyms around town, meeting clients, hustling. At the time, I was with my wife. We were starting to build a family. And then COVID shut down all the gyms.
Mm.
So I remember literally it was an overnight thing. I went from starting to build a little bit of momentum to losing all my clients and all my revenue overnight. And I was like, gosh, man, this is crazy. Like, what am I going to do? And I thought about going and looking for a 9 to 5 and reaching out to family members who had companies that maybe I could go work for. And I just realized, man, no, like I'm not going to go backwards now. I've come too far through my life experience and through all this adversity I endured to quit and
Mm.
give up on my dreams now. And I just went all in to building my online business. And that's at the time when I met Will Nelson. One day I was at a coffee shop. It was actually literally this coffee shop. I have a cup of coffee. It's
Good.
down the street from my podcast studio and office, but I was there drinking coffee on my laptop, trying to figure out what to do, like trying to stay busy and productive. And I saw this guy walking through the parking lot holding up his phone, filming a selfie video. And he's like this big buff white dude. You could tell he just came from the gym. He's wearing like a cutoff tee. And I made a comment to him as he walked by me. I was like, "Oh, did you inspire some people with that video or something?" Like a little comment, a little joke. And he's
Mm.
like, "Well, actually, I run an online coaching business. I help fitness professionals and in-person coaches take their business online and grow their business that way." And I had been hearing about online coaching and I had a feeling it was the future.
Mm.
And it made sense. Like, okay, I could reach more people. I'm not delegated just to my geographic location. I had this whole vision of taking my business online. But what I thought it was and what it actually was were two completely different things.
How
And
so?
so working with Will for that next 90 days, he really helped me a lot. I ended up working with him for the next couple years at that time, off and on. And he's one of the main reasons I was able to build my online business because he taught me everything I should do. And I was able to inject my story, my passion, put my twist on things, but use the fundamentals that he taught me. And he taught me a 7-figure system, that changed my life and my family's life forever.
You mentioned that the online coaching thing was different than what you expected. Like, what was different about it?
I just thought like you create these workout programs and people are just going to buy them. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know, like, I didn't know how am I going to work with these clients? Do I like do a workout with them while I'm on
Yeah.
camera? I
Yeah.
didn't know. And honestly, I mean, online coaching, it's much more about creating an emotional connection with people
Mm.
and building real relationships. We're just using the medium of social media to communicate a message to people that we wouldn't be able to come into contact with. But it's more so about the emotional connection than anything.
Mm.
And being able to really touch people and speak to them and build rapport and trust with them through your content.
Mm.
And, when I started off, I was just doing predominantly fitness coaching because selling fat loss is the easiest thing to sell online. People identify with that.
Mm.
You're like, hey, this is my client, John. This is him 90 days later. If you want to look like this, reach out. It's easy. People identify with it. But when you're selling life coaching, it's much different. And I remember going from being a fitness coach to realizing, man, I'm more than just a fitness coach. Like, I want to be a life coach. I want to teach people how to improve the quality of their lives in all these areas because I had overcome depression, addiction. I come from a broken home. And we'll get into my story, but like I was facing life in prison at 23 years old.
Mm.
And I went to prison for 5.5 years. I have such a dynamic life experience. And I knew it was valuable for other people, especially during COVID, because everyone was locked down.
Mm.
And we saw the statistics. I mean, mental health issues were through the roof, domestic violence, all these things, relapse on drugs and alcohol. So, selling life coaching is much different. You have to learn how to really create a deeper connection with people and your content has to speak to them in a different way. So, that was an evolution of myself as a coach and it took time, but once I like kind of found my groove and found my voice, it really allowed me to take things to the next level. I mean, when you're selling fitness coaching, it might be a couple $100 a month or a package for a couple thousand. Like I can sell packages for 20,000, 50,000 because I have the right demographic, who's my ideal client. And, I've been able to create value that for them, it makes sense to pay that money for the impact and the changes that they're able to make and how it affects their business, their relationships, their mental health. And, that's the difference between selling fat loss and selling complete transformation.
Yeah. No, man, I'll kind of echo and just give Will some kudos as well. You know, so I don't know how much you know about me, Sean, but I've had the company. It's called the Epic Dad Company for like 3 years now, and we started out with supplements, right? So we sell supplements to dads to get in the gym, get mentally and physically fit. But our mission is a lot bigger than just getting you fit. Our mission is we want to change the culture by creating better dads. So because of that, we have done a lot of content, right? We've done this podcast, we've done all types of courses, resources, communities, all that stuff. Workout programs and things like that too, that just like give away. But we officially launched like our online fitness program last year, like halfway through the year. And it's just been incredible, man. It's been such a cool experience. To your point, it's more than just like a plan, right? We have great programs, but that is the tip of the iceberg. Really, what we're doing is we're providing guys the framework they need to be successful, right? And like we rewiring their mindset. And then two, giving them the accountability and community they need to be successful. It's
Yeah.
much less about the plan, like, hey, here's how you get a six pack, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There's so much more behind.
Yeah, I love that. And you said those key words. It's about having the right plan to follow. They need a plan, they need a
Mhm.
blueprint based on their lifestyle factors, their goals. But then having accountability and support is so key because most guys that want to change, they don't have the right mindset and they definitely don't have the right habits. That's why they
Mhm.
have the
Mhm.
lackluster results they have. So it takes repetition to change your mindset. You got to be able to do the work long enough to start to see yourself in a different light and realize what's possible. That's why transforming your body, going from being fat and out of shape to having like a six pack or getting stronger
Mhm.
is so impactful because you've seen yourself transform. You did that work to create that outcome. It's so powerful for what it can do for a guy's belief system and confidence, but then having the community is key because month 1, you're not gonna go through that transformation. You might start to
Mhm.
feel a little different. Month 3, maybe you start to see changes, but you're like, "Okay, I've been consistent, I'm feeling good." All of a sudden, they've been in the community a while, and they're starting to see other people transform. They're encouraged. They see guys that they can relate to who are further ahead than them on the journey, and they're like, "Man, maybe I could be like Steve or John." The community aspect's so crucial because they feel a part of something. It then
Mhm.
becomes bigger than themselves, and they realize, "Okay, I'm a part of this dynamic group. We're all here to be better leaders for our families,
Mhm.
better men." And they love that, like growing up playing sports or having a close group of friends or being in the military,
Mhm.
right? Like as guys get older, though, they lose their tribe. They don't have a tribe.
Yep.
And a lot of guys just get lost in the shuffle because of that. And, what's better than achieving goals is achieving goals with other people that you like and relate to. It feels different, man. And so I love that you're doing that because I think one of the ways that we can create a really big impact in our country right now is by creating stronger leaders at home. I think
100%.
the average man has gotten weak and soft, and you see it affecting the way they raise their children. And kids are on screens all day long, and there's all these different issues than when we grew up. We need very present fathers, strong men, and good leaders at home. Like point blank, that is the difference between somebody growing up and being successful and growing up and going through challenges and struggles. It's that relationship at home. That's the foundation for everything. So really love the work that you're doing and respect you for that.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, Sean. Well, I wanna go back to your story too, man. Like, you're doing all this great work right now, but it wasn't always that way, and you've got kind of this unique story. So talk to me through what were the circumstances that put you in life in prison? What does that story even look like?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty crazy, man. Like I honestly feel like I've lived multiple lives to this point. I'm only 36. My life today is completely different than what it was. So I grew up here in Santa Barbara, California, beautiful beach community right on the Pacific Ocean. As a kid, I was obsessed with sports. I loved playing baseball, basketball, football. I loved surfing. I was competitive. I was athletic. I was a good kid, man. I had a lot of passion, a lot of heart. And at a young age, around 10 and 11, I started noticing my parents were struggling. And I really started recognizing they were different than my friends' parents or my aunts and uncles. And they were battling addiction. They were both
Mhm.
battling addiction to alcohol and drugs. And so I started seeing some really traumatic things, man. Like at 10 was the age when I first saw my mother overdose in front of me.
Jeez.
And her body was just lifeless on the floor in the bedroom. And my uncle and my dad were doing CPR trying to revive her. And I was just kind of shielding my younger siblings from seeing it. And I put them in my room and I remember just sitting there in shock and disbelief, like so scared as a young kid. And that became a reoccurring theme. I saw her overdose 2 to 3 times after that. Saw her and my dad fight, cops come to the house. Just really our lives started falling apart. And then at the age of 14, when I started high school, like my first month as a freshman in high school, such an impactful age. I'm going through puberty. I'm trying to find my path in life and fit in. And at that age, we're so self-conscious as it is. And I remember I came home one day and my dad was blacked out in his room, like completely drunk. And he had a pistol on his lap. He had a gun. And nobody knew what he was going to do, but he was saying crazy things. We didn't know if he had an argument with somebody or if he was suicidal. Like we couldn't tell. He was pretty incoherent, but it was very scary because he had a loaded pistol on his lap. So we all were fleeing the house, my uncle and my siblings and I. The cops came and they had a standoff. And I thought my dad was going to die right in front of us. I thought the cops were going to shoot him. Luckily, he surrendered the weapon and they arrested him. But, he went to prison behind that. So I didn't see my dad for almost 2 years after that moment. And then I don't know what was harder on me, that moment or the fact that the next couple of months, my mom fell full blown into her addiction, completely just relapsed, found a boyfriend, stopped coming home, and essentially abandoned me and my siblings. And that's something that just broke my heart and something that took me a long time to forgive her for. But really, in the span of like 3 months, I lost both my parents and my whole world just went dark, man. Like, I didn't want to go to school anymore because people were asking me what happened. I didn't want to go around my old friend groups because they were going to ask me about my life. I didn't go to family functions or interact with anybody. What I started doing is I started smoking marijuana and drinking and taking pills. And I started hanging out with different friends who were going through similar stuff in their life because we could identify with each other a little bit. And so from 14 until 18, all through high school, I never stepped foot on a baseball field, on a football field, or a basketball court. Didn't play any sports, didn't apply myself whatsoever in school. Started getting in trouble, getting in fights, I was on probation for like marijuana possession and just really lost myself in that process. And then so after high school, got a job working for my uncle's tree service business, was working hard. Every day I was working hard. I was learning the value of earning money and grit and discipline. That's when I really developed some key attributes that later on in life helped me to become successful. But I had my addiction that was still plaguing me, but I had those demons, the shame, the guilt, the trauma that I went through. It was still suppressed within me and I didn't deal with it. I was just trying to run from my life's problems and pretend that stuff in the past didn't happen. And the hardest part was that my dad would get out of jail and come back and live with us, or my mom would start coming around. And, she was like losing her mind from all the drug use. So I was always reminded of that initial change that took place in my life. I was always brought back to those traumatizing events when I was younger, and I could never escape it, man. Fast forward a couple years, I was at a party and I was still drinking and I was still doing drugs and I was partying like crazy. I was at this college party on the Mesa in Santa Barbara, California, which is such a beautiful, iconic place.
Mhm.
Multi-million-dollar homes on the cliff, right on the ocean, like world-class view. It's beautiful. And I'm partying there and we're just acting wild. And I started noticing these two groups of guys that are squaring off. They're about to fight. And, if you've been to one of those college parties, it's always like these drunk guys at the end of the night, they start brawling and then everyone goes home. I've been to so many of those parties. And sometimes I was in the fight, sometimes I was watching. And I assumed that's what this situation was going to be. So I go there to watch and I'm like right there and I'm too close. I'm pretty much in the mix at this point, and the fight just breaks out and bodies are flying everywhere. People are throwing punches. It's crazy. And I get tackled from the side and slammed into a car and slammed into the ground. And I thought, damn, man, these guys are like jumping me. They thought I was one of the opposing individuals. And so I'm holding on to this person thinking they're going to start stomping on me and stuff. And no one hit me. No one kicked me. No one did anything. I just had this person on top of me. And it was weird. Like usually if someone tackles you, they start trying to posture up and hit you. And I'm rolling around and finally I roll this guy off of me. And the only thing I was thinking was punch this guy, like hit him. He's attacking you. So I threw 2 punches that skimmed the side of his head and he stayed face down on the ground when I stood up, which I thought was really odd. And my friend, the only person I went to the party with, is calling my name, yelling at me, come on, let's go, let's go. Everyone's running. And I limp over to him. I hurt my back and leg in that tackle. And I get under a street light like this. And I was just covered in blood all over my shirt, my arms, and it was dripping off of my face. And it wasn't like someone got their nose broken or something, you know?
Uh,
It was a lot of blood, and it wasn't my blood, it was that guy's blood. And so my friend starts running, I follow him, everyone at the party who was in the fight runs, and we went back to his house, and we both passed out, we were so drunk. So the next morning, first thing I did was pull out my phone, I was in shock and panic, and I Googled "fight on the Mesa," and an article came up, and it said 2 men were stabbed in an altercation stemming from a fight on the Mesa, and one of the individuals is in a coma, and, he's in a life-threatening situation, basically. And right then and there, I was like, "Oh my gosh, man." I knew something bad had happened, I didn't see it, I didn't know,
mhm.
but I was like, "Man, okay. Cops are gonna come looking for me, and they're gonna try to round us all up and figure out what happened." And I really assumed that they were gonna try to press me for information, but I never thought that they were looking at me as the main suspect. But what had happened once I read the police report was that the people who came out when they started hearing about the fight, they saw that moment where I was on the ground with this guy. Nobody saw the initial attack. It was dark and it started before anybody inside came out. So in the police report, a lot of people said, "Yeah, we saw Sean on top of the guy. We saw Sean," instead of saying the word punch, they used the word strike in the police report. We saw Sean striking down at him, which a strike could be a punch, it could be this
Yeah.
motion. They came and arrested me the next day with a forensic unit. They had the dogs, they had AR-15s, the SWAT team, and they arrested me at gunpoint and charged me with attempted murder.
Gee.
So I'm 23 years old, getting booked into the county jail for attempted murder. And I'm like, dude, my whole life is over. They really think I did it. It looks bad. Like, this is something that you read in a book or see in a movie. And it was all these moments that come together that made me look guilty. Like, from the outside looking in, I looked guilty and I didn't do it. Right.
Mm.
But it was a bad situation and it was surreal. When I was getting booked in the county jail, I couldn't even grasp what was taking place. Like, it just felt too surreal. It felt fake. And I was hoping I was gonna wake up, man, and every day I did wake up, but the nightmare continued because I was stuck in that jail cell, and it wasn't going away.
Jeez, man. Talk about a turn of events, of something that just like all of a sudden life has changed.
Yeah, I mean, literally, your life completely is changed forever, and most people thought I'd never get out of prison, or if I did, like, they probably thought I was done forever, you know? Attempted murder, that's like life in prison, maximum penalty, or multiple decades. Usually when people commit attempted murder and they get found guilty, they're doing 10, 15, 20 years. What happened is, man, I went to court, and the first thing they were telling me in court was that they wanted to amend my charges to homicide because they thought the victim was gonna be a vegetable. They didn't think he was going to survive. And miraculously, he did. He miraculously survived, man. And so then I'm going back and forth to court and they're trying to figure out what took place, what happened, all this evidence. Nothing's improving for me. And to be honest with you, I could tell my lawyers even thought I was guilty. Nobody believed me.
Mm.
The only people that believed me were my close family members, and some of them might even been skeptical. And people, this is the hardest part, is I was hearing this through like the underworld, right? Or the grapevine, however you want to call it, that people that were either in the fight or at the party knew that I didn't do it. They knew who did it. They knew I didn't do it, but none of them wanted to come forward and
Yeah.
get involved because they didn't want to snitch or rat or get involved in the cops. And that was the hardest part, is knowing that there was multiple people who could have changed, changed my circumstances. But man, God had a bigger plan for me. And here's what happened. After a couple months of being in jail, coming off of drugs and alcohol, I got in fights in there. I got moved around the jail. I had this moment of clarity where I was stuck in this tiny little cell where they moved me. And it was so small I could touch both walls at the same time. It was just this concrete cell. And I'm coming off all these drugs and I'm just like still trying to come to terms with what's going on. And I had this moment of clarity where I realized, Sean, what are you doing? Like, you're doing the same thing in here you did all those years in your life that ultimately led you to being at that party and got you arrested. And I never felt guilty for the crime, but I started taking accountability for my entire life. And the reason is I sat in that cell and I started thinking about all the things in my life that I would never get a chance to do.
Hmm.
All the things that I had wanted to do, the changes I wanted to make. I started thinking about how I never played sports in high school. I started thinking about how I just wasted all those years. And I started to realize that I'd taken my life for granted and I had wasted that valuable time. And that was something that really stung me, man. Like, that pain, it stung me to the core of my being, realizing that I had all this potential. I had these dreams and passions as a kid. I never pursued them And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are going to feel and realize on their deathbed is they're going to look back on their life and they're going to wish they had more time to do all the things they said they were going to do and all the changes they want to make and the person they want to become. And it's too late. And,
Yeah.
for me, I felt that pain. And, instead of quitting and giving up at that time and just thinking my life was over, I said, I'm going to fight with everything that I've got to persevere through these circumstances and become the person I know I'm supposed to be in life. I was going to be my true and best self in anything and everything I did. Like it was a massive shift in my own identity and my mindset. And the second promise I made was that I was going to be sober for the rest of my life
Hmm.
because drugs and alcohol had plagued me and my family. I saw a lot of my friends accidentally overdose growing up. A lot of family members died behind their drug and alcohol use. And so I did. I made a commitment to be sober for the rest of my life. And I've been sober ever since. I'm coming up on 13 years. And
Wow.
it's been life changing for me. And so those internal commitments and that shift that took place became the catalyst for my redemption. And so I spent 8 months fighting my case before they sentenced me to 7 years. They
Okay.
sentenced me to 7 years for assault with a deadly weapon. They said I did it, which I didn't. I took the plea deal, and this is why I took it. They reduced my sentence, and they said, if you take these 7 years, you'll do about 6. If you don't
Yeah.
take this deal, we're taking you to trial, and most likely you're going to get 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I had gone through such a powerful shift. And in that 8 months, man, I really started to change. I started working on my growth and development. Whatever I could do, anything that I could partake in to improve, I was 100% committed. Like I'd get up and I'd pray, I'd meditate, I'd work out like a beast. I started doing hundreds of burpees and then thousands of push-ups every day in that cell. I started reading books, any books that they were passing out. I was so hungry for growth. I was reading the dictionary and keeping a vocab list and studying it and memorizing it in my cell. This is what man, when people say they want to change and they want it bad enough, like they don't really give everything they got. And I had to. For me, it was life or death. That gave me enough hope and belief in myself that by the time it came to take that plea deal, I said, I'm going to take this deal, man. This was like an internal conversation. I'm going to take this plea deal and I'm going to make every second of every day in prison count. These are going to be the most productive and positive years of my life. And when I come home, there's nothing that I can't do.
Hmm.
And that was my mindset going into it. And that's what happened. I went to prison and I worked out harder. Instead of doing a couple hundred burpees or whatever in the morning, I was doing 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 squats in the dorm while everyone else slept before chow. And it's dark out, I was reading every book that you can imagine on personal development, health, fitness, anatomy, anything that I could get sent in, I was devouring it. And I started taking college courses in there too, because one of the prisons I went to had a college correspondence program. I was like, wow, this is so cool, man. I'm making up for all that time I wasted in my youth. So I started studying all the subjects that they offered, biology, business, psychology. And I ended up getting 4 associate's degrees during that time just because I could. I had so much time and I took every course they had available. And so they gave me 6 months off my sentence. So now, every day I had a purpose in there. I was an athlete, man. I was a visionary thinking about my future and writing my goals down. I was a scholar. I was educating myself. Like every day in there, I had a purpose. And the other guys noticed that I was different and that I was focused on going somewhere in my life. I wasn't just going through the motions. I was intentional. And they could see my level of discipline and dedication. So a lot of younger guys and some other individuals started reaching out to me going, hey, man, can I work out with you? I see you're in great shape. Like, I want to get in shape too. Or, hey, what books you reading? I see you always on your bunk after you work out. You're reading books and writing notes. What are you reading? And then the college courses as well. I had some guys enroll with me in the college courses, and I started seeing them change, man. I started seeing these guys become more optimistic and positive, get in better shape, lose weight, talk about their future lives differently, and believe that better things could come if they did the right thing in that moment. And I realized, wow, this is incredible. I'm sharing with these guys what's worked for me, and I'm seeing these guys transform before my eyes. And those are some of the hardest people to change, man. These are criminals. They got face tattoos. They're from, neighborhoods that have no hope, no optimism, broken families like me.
Mm.
And there was some things that we could identify with each other and relate to. So they trusted me and they saw where I was going and they believed that maybe they could too. And it was the coolest thing. That's when I realized, wow, this is my calling and my true purpose in life is to be of service and help people and become a coach and a speaker and write a book. And all the goals that I've been able to achieve derive from those moments right there.
Yeah. Dude, what a story, man. I feel like it's relatable in some sense, right? That I feel like we all have this thing that's calling us to be greater than we are right now. The thing that is different, right, is that moment of holy crap, my life is completely different than it was yesterday, right? I feel like that is obviously unique to you. My question to you, Sean, is for guys that don't have an experience like that, where it's like, boom, like we're it's changed overnight. Like, how do we take those things that you've learned, those lessons you've learned to build that motivation, to build that discipline, to ultimately change your life, without being at that moment of like, holy shit, what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah.
huge kind of like earth shattering event. Like it's some guys are just looking in the mirror and they're just not happy, right? Like
Yeah.
how do they
I
make a
mean,
change?
that's the question that I've been trying to solve ever since I went through that experience is how can I
Yeah.
get other people to feel what I felt in those moments so
Mm,
they can change and take control of their lives? Because it's easier to change because the pain threshold is so great. Like for
mhm,
me, it was survival, it was complete life or death. If I
mm,
didn't do those things, I felt like I was literally going to die. And here's what I mean. First of all, I was willing to do anything to change and get a second chance at life. And I literally made those promises to God, like, God, please give me a second chance. Everything that you were calling me to do my entire life that I ignored and ran from, I will do it all to the best of my ability. We all have those two voices inside of us. One is God always calling us to become better versions of ourselves, face our fears, make that change, go after your passion. But the other voice is the voice of fear, the voice of doubt, the voice of, oh, what will other people think? What if I'm not
mm,
good enough? And that voice is what kills most people's potential because it keeps
mm,
them stuck.
mhm,
That's the voice I listened to for those 10 years where I was struggling. And in jail, I got sober and I had so much time to think and reflect and so much solitude that
mhm,
I started becoming very aware of that stronger voice, that voice that was the truth, that was God, that was my conscience. And God speaking to me, calling me on this path that I was supposed to go down my entire life. And I'm here today because I made the conscious decision to listen to that voice and I had the courage to take those actions every day for the last 12 years.
mm,
That's why my life continues to get better because I have faith and I should demonstrate my faith through action every day. And a lot of people, I question, do they even hear that voice?
mm,
And it's been so long since they did. That's why I always go back to childhood. When you're a kid, you're so attuned and tapped in to that truth. You know who you want to be. You take action, you speak your mind. But then at a young age, fear starts to come into your life and
mm,
you start to doubt yourself a little and you become self conscious. And most people never rebound from that, man.
mhm,
And then today, with drugs and alcohol abuse or phones or stress, all of those things sever that connection to that voice.
mm,
That's why I preach sobriety. That's why the gym is such a powerful tool. That's why self reflection, journaling, solitude, all those things are such a powerful tool because you start to become attuned to that voice. Then you have to have the courage to take action. If there's somebody who hasn't gone through what I've gone through, it's helping them to understand what's at stake and painting that picture because pain is the ultimate motivator for most
mhm,
people, you know?
mhm,
And there's three ways that people change. It's a traumatic life event like I went through. It's through novel experiences where you can seek new information, meet new people, get into a different environment. That's why your coaching group and what you're doing is so key to create transformation. And then the last one is repetition. And repetition is doing the work every day until it rewires your brain and you start to
mm,
see yourself as that different person. And so, it's really hard to get people to change, getting them to speak and be open about where they want to go in life, getting them to be accountable and honest about where they're at and who it's affecting. They have to hear their own voice out loud. They have to be able to honestly acknowledge what's going on. And they have to really be able to say, like, hey, I'm here and I want to be there. And that alone can be a catalyst for change. But everyone's a little different. Some guys need to be challenged and yelled at and called out.
mhm,
Some
mhm.
guys need to be guided and supported and pushed. You just got to be able to read the person and see what's the best way to support them in that endeavor.
Hey guys, interrupting the show for 1 minute to ask you a question. If the future you 40 years from now looked at you right now, looked at the way you're showing up, looked at the energy you're bringing to your family, looked at the way you are leading, looked at your physical shape, looked at the habits, routines, and disciplines you have, looked at your vices, would he be proud? Or would he be shaking you violently, trying to get you to wake up and take control of your life? If you feel stuck in a rut, can't get motivated, I understand. I've been there. That is why I created the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the Fit program is to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back to you talked about kind of hearing that voice, right? And I've kind of gone through, I wouldn't quite call it a spiritual journey, right? But like I've had kind of ebbs and flows in my spiritual life over the past few years. And one thing that I'm very, very aware of, though, and definitely believe in, is that God to me is like an energy source, right? And when I think about it, there's positive energy, there's negative energy, and you can call that whatever you want to call it. You can call it God, you can call it the devil, yin yang, whatever. But that positive energy that you feel, like, that is God's life force. And we have to be able to connect with that. I have my opinions about how we can connect with that on a daily basis. And I can definitely feel it if I do that on a daily basis or if I don't, just in the way that I'm showing up and the energy that I feel. I'd love to know, Sean, from your perspective, what are some things that we can tap into on a daily basis that are going to give us that room? You mentioned a couple of things like journaling, like fitness, things like that. But like, are there things that you found that help you tap into that voice a little bit stronger? And then it's on us to make that decision to go change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sobriety is probably the most powerful. If you're
Okay.
not sober, you're numbing and dulling yourself,
Hmm.
and you're not going to feel that voice and that connection as
Hmm.
much. Solitude as well, especially in the morning. Early in the morning or right before bed, your brain waves change. Like when you come out of deep sleep, you haven't made a million decisions. Decision fatigue's a real thing. You're not like on your phone, cortisol level, like your stress levels aren't high. So early in the morning, what I like to do, and this stems from my time in prison, I used to do the same thing. I get up an hour, 90 minutes before I have to do anything,
Hmm.
and I sip coffee and I just sit in a chair and I just kind of let my mind come alive.
Hmm.
And, I have a book I read sometimes. I have a notebook next to me for notes, but I just start to tap in and connect on a deeper level. I start to just allow myself to sit there. And the moment I feel bored or I want to do something, I don't. I just sit there and I kind of connect. And that's when God speaks to me, man. And I get so much clarity in those moments. And not every day, but there's some days where like that flood of creativity and inspiration, those visions are so powerful.
Hmm.
And I write them down. I put reminders in my phone or schedule stuff. Like I'm always taking action on that feeling right away. You capture that information, and then whatever action you can take towards it, I implement it immediately. The last, and this, it's hard to say which one's more powerful, but fitness is such a catalyst for creating that connection, that feeling that you're talking
Hmm.
about. But you have to have intensity in your workouts and routines. If I just go to the gym and do a decent workout, I'm not necessarily going to have that feeling. But if I go do a 10 out of 10 intense leg day, squats, leg press, lunges, like I'm just depleted. In the midst of that, I elevate myself to a place where I feel and see things differently. Or cardio. That's why when I came home from prison, I did 2 Ironmans, ultra marathon, 200-mile bike ride. I loved endurance training because
Hmm.
I'd be out on my bike and I'd have that solitude for hours,
Yeah.
and I'm
Hmm.
just heart rate's up, I'm breathing hard, I'm exhausted, and I would just get so much inspiration, so many ideas. They would just be flooding my consciousness. This first started happening to me in prison. I remember I would do burpees in my cell just to get through the day, man. You're just trying to take that edge off, right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I remember the feeling when I would just be doing the burpees and I'd be breathing hard and we're pushing each other, me and the guys I'm working out with. All of a sudden, you elevate from that lower vibrational frequency. You talk about energy from like that place of like depression and shame and guilt and all those low vibrational energies. And all of a sudden, you would elevate. You'd feel it. Suddenly, you wouldn't be as daunted by the situation. Suddenly, instead of looking at the negatives in your world and your circumstances, you start to see the positives. And that's the main thing, man, is like if you go to the gym in the morning and you have all this stress in your life and all these issues that are nagging you, and you work out really hard, suddenly instead of looking at them as problems, you start to see the solution to each one
Hmm.
because you've elevated your frequency. You've elevated yourself to a place where you're not operating from fear and doubt and pessimism. You're operating from your higher self. That's what I truly believe. And I experience it all the time. If you get up early in the morning, have some self reflection
Yeah.
and write down your goals and feelings and thoughts and ideas, and you give yourself a good 30 minutes minimum, and then you go move your body and really do an intense workout. If you can do that over time, it will elevate you to a completely different person.
Yeah. I would say, man, that there is a huge like black and white shift on like if I got my morning routine in and got fitness in versus if I didn't and just like jumped right into the day and like, was in a reactionary state. It is night and day difference. My wife will tell you, she'll be like, holy crap, you're an asshole today. Like you didn't get your stuff in, and not only like does it make me feel better, but I feel like it helps me tap into that higher voice, that higher vibrational frequency, to God, like I said, whatever you want to call it, it helps me tap into that, and get a lot of clarity around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other component is like you hear people say the word alignment a lot, like live in alignment. But it's true, if at the end of the night or the day you take inventory and you ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would I give today as far as a ranking? 1 is horrible, 10 is the best day I could have possibly lived. And if you consistently do that, you'll start to become aware of like little things you're doing in your life that throw you off track or that are like in a micro way sabotaging your growth and potential. Because flow state's a real thing. So if you start your day off like we're talking about, you create that flow state. Then you go into your work appointments or whatever you're doing. And then by the time you get home, you're able to still show up for the family and be present, have a good night. All of a sudden you go to sleep and you're like, dang, dude, I did everything today I was supposed to do and I gave my best effort. Like I
Mhm.
got up early, I worked on myself, worked on my health and fitness, ate all the right meals, showed up at work, crushed it, did good for my team members and in my business. And then when I came home, man, I wasn't on my phone. I was present with the kids. I played with them. I helped my wife. I did the dishes. Like, and all of a sudden you look at your day and you're like, that's what my best self would have done.
Mm.
If you could
Yeah.
start to string along those days, that's what alignment is. And that's when that clarity and those visions and that momentum, it becomes so powerful because the compounding effect is real. If you can put together those days over a course of a couple years and then decades, like that's how you live the ultimate life. And I think it comes down to having clarity, like who is my best self? What do I want in life? If I could just write it down on paper right now and God would grant those wishes and that would materialize into my life in the next couple years, what would I want? And not what like it's like, what is my heart calling me to achieve? It's different than wanting a new car because it's cool.
Mhm.
This is purpose. This is fulfillment. This is something deeper. But then if you can align your daily actions and who you're becoming now to those outcomes, that's alignment, man. And that is so powerful.
Mm. Yeah. I love what you said there about kind of ranking yourself at the end of the day. I love that practice. That's something I don't do currently. I think I'm going to start doing that. I do some exercises and definitely on a weekly basis, kind of take a look back, take stock of like, hey, did I live in alignment with my values? Like what I say is important. Did I actually do that this week? But I love doing that on a daily basis too, because you're right. It's the more consistent we can be on a daily basis. And it may not be a 10 every day, but it may be, hey, I'm stringing together sevens, all day, every day. Right. And that is significant progress versus saying, hey, I had a 9 today and then I had a 1, and like we can kind of, instead of being like this, we can say, hey, cool, we're just like nice and even sevens. So I love that idea
Yeah.
of consistency and scoring yourself.
Yeah, and then it brings awareness to like, so if you keep having sevens, or let's say you missed the gym one day and
Yeah.
it's like a 3, and then a couple days later, same thing. You're gonna start to recognize these patterns in your
Yeah.
behavior.
Day.
Yeah,
A couple days
okay.
ago.
What would it take to get an 8 tomorrow or a 9? Like, what does
Yeah.
that look like? So you're coaching yourself and you're holding yourself accountable, and it makes it more feasible. A lot
Mm.
of people they want to write like stuff down when things are going good, or if you coach guys to track their calories, they'll track them, and then when they have a day they fall off, they like don't track.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you track your calories? Like, well, I went over. Well, dude, put it in there because you're gonna be able to see and like your brain's gonna recognize, dang, I had 200 grams of fat with that cheat meal. Like, and you're less likely to do it. But if you
Mhm.
don't track it or write it down, you're trying to be in denial. You're trying to hide from it, right?
Mhm.
Pretend it didn't happen. So yeah, and that's an exercise now. I do that mentally now.
Mhm.
Every night I'll run through my day and mentally I'll give myself that score. And I'm very honest, and I'm very hard on myself. I hold high standards. Any little thing that stands out, I make a mental note, man. I carry that over to the next day, and I will not repeat that behavior again.
Mm.
So I do 2 things. I do that, and then I look at my calendar for the next day because I like to have that mental intention set. How many appointments do I have? What does the flow of my day look like?
Mhm.
Just that alone, like, really sets me up for success day in and day out.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing I'll say too is just around kind of hearing that higher voice. And to me, the time that I hear it the most is after intense workout. I mean, obviously, like you're raising your endorphin levels, and things like that through workout, right? But then getting through that hard, physical bout, and then taking a second to say, okay, cool. Now let me be intentional about slowing down and being present in the moment. And that's really where I feel that voice from God come through and get extreme clarity around like who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? What is the plan for me? Right. Like I feel like that is when I get that clarity is after hard workout, like 100%.
Yeah. Early on when I was building my business, all my content, I would do it predominantly like in the morning after I'd run or
Hmm.
mid workout or right after my workout. And that content would have like, I'd have so much clarity in my message and passion behind that message. That's when I would generate literally all my leads, and that's how I built my business. It's like those moments you get into a higher frequency state, and it's a message you wanna share with the world or an idea that I'd have, I'd write it down, and then I'd start to act upon it. All my creative ideas around expanding my business, the growth that we've had, the stages I've been able to hit, writing my book, people that I've met, and just everything. When you're in that high frequency state, it's just so much more clear to you what you gotta do.
Yeah. Well, Sean, where can guys go check out the book? Where can they go check out more about you?
On Facebook, Sean Michael Crane. You spell my
Okay.
first name Sean. And on Instagram, it's Sean_Crane_official. You could follow me there, check out my content, shoot me a message. And I love to connect with people, man. I answer my DMs. So if they want to connect with me, they can reach out to me there.
Okay. Awesome. Dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. I think it's an awesome discussion. I know I got a lot out of it. I know our listeners will as well. So I'll say this, man, is for guys listening, is two things. If you got value from it, drop down, leave us a comment, leave us a review. That's going to help it show up more in the algorithm and stuff like that. But then even more important is if you did get value from this episode, which I'm sure you did, is I want you to take it and I want you to share this episode with a dad in your network. A lot of stuff what Sean and I talked about, right? Like is, hey, maybe they're going through a lot of stuff and like they don't have that life-changing moment like Sean did, right? Of like, holy shit, the literally I'm going to prison the next day. Like, but they could be in a prison of their mind, right? And they need something to help wake them up and shake them and get them on the right path. So
Yeah.
I was like, let's share that episode,
Yeah. And so that's why I wrote my book, Prison of Your Own, and gave it that title because before prison, I was literally in a mental prison, and it took me going to a physical prison to break free of that mental prison and find true freedom and fulfillment. And I see so many people out here who have all the opportunity in the world, but because they're trapped in that mental prison they've created by the way they think and maybe past traumas they haven't dealt with, whatever it is, they limit their potential. And so my book's available on Amazon, Prison of Your Own. It'd be very insightful for anyone who feels like they are trapped in that mental prison and doesn't know how to get unstuck.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it doesn't take, like I said, it doesn't take that crazy aha moment of like what Sean went through, like to have that awakening. And so share this episode with a dad in your network because you never know what they're going through. And this episode right here might be like what they need to be the catalyst to make that next positive change. So two things is drop down, leave us a review, leave us a comment, and then share this with somebody else. And Sean, thank you again, man. We'll link up everything down in the show notes. So you guys go check out, go connect with Sean, go pick up his book. And then Sean, dude, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the show and supporting my mission to change the culture by creating more epic dads. If this message resonates with you and you're ready to become the husband, father, and man you're called to be, here's 2 quick things you can do to get started. Number 1 is to join the Epic Dad training app. Inside the Epic Dad app, you'll find workout programs, community, habits, accountability, courses, resources, and exclusive discounts on all Epic Dad supplements and gear. It has everything you need to start leveling up as a dad. Just hit the link in the show description and get your first 7 days free. And if you're ready to turbocharge your results and create massive change in your life, hit the link in the show description and apply to the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the FIT program is to radically change your life in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. Thanks for listening. Now go be epic.